Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. With new cases of COVID-19 declared all over the world each day, economies and healthcare systems are under unprecedented pressure and the human spirit is being tested. It's more important than ever to focus on innovating for responsible governance to get us through to the other side. Joining me to discuss what governments, businesses, and local communities can do to foster the spirit of innovation is Ambassador Abdullah bin Rashid Al-Khalifa, the Ambassador of the Kingdom of Bahrain to the United States. Ambassador Al-Khalifa, welcome to Trade Talks. It's great to have you with us.
Hi, Jill. Thanks for having me on Trade Talks.
Tell us about the current COVID-19 situation in Bahrain from the economic and societal impact of the pandemic.
Well, first of all, I have to say that Bahrain has dealt with COVID-19 with sincerity and transparency because we believe that public health is a question of national security. We view the security and well-being of our nation's citizens with utmost importance. And there is no doubt to me that COVID-19 has tested the resiliency and the agility of governments all around the world. The pandemic has also tested individuals and societies' resolve, their patience, and cooperation with their respective governments and authorities. And although every government has a unique set of variables that determine its actions and responses to contain the spread of the virus, there are many shared practices that have proven to unanimously reduce its spread, and we're learning as we go. But from our perspective, with a population of only 1.5 million people, Bahrain has already tested 50% of the population. We have the world's second highest percentage of testing per 1,000 persons. We have the highest regional recovery rate of 93%. And our mortality rate is one of the lowest, reaching 0.36%. So the chances of death caused by COVID in relations to the population is 0.01%, which is substantially less than the global average. So I think if we were to look at it from an innovative perspective and how innovation can be the driver to many solutions today, I think that we've dealt with it very early on. We have intervened very early on to mitigate the effects of the virus. And as it is, weeks before the discovery of the first case in February, the government formulated a task force led by His Royal Highness the Crown Prince, and immediately we saw mobile testing units that were collecting samples in different communities, and it evidently ranked Bahrain as having one of the highest tests per million people. And we also sought to strengthen our healthcare system by proactively planning for the virus, which has resulted in today a very robust system that stands strong. And medical services, whether it's COVID or other cases, they remain unaffected today. So did we acquire systems? Yes. Did we establish laboratories and field hospitals, drive-through testing facilities? We had to do this. And as it stands today, the capacity for COVID centers is only at 25%. But here's where innovation steps in. We introduced a mobile app called Be Aware. It sends notifications to users entering the proximity of active COVID cases. We converted a parking lot into a temporary 300-bed ICU. We used some of the schools that were closed, the public schools, and we've repurposed them in order to rehouse migrant workers from overcrowded accommodation. And with less demand on transportation, public transport buses were converted into those mobile testing units that I talked about, and they were deployed into communities. And so I think there's a lot of room for innovation. I think there's a lot of room for governments to be working with the private sector to come up with solutions.
Yeah, that response is really quite remarkable. What does the economy in Bahrain look like for the remainder of 2020 and 2021? And what specifically is the country doing to support banks and companies that will face difficulties as a result of COVID-19?
Well, First of all, I think it's important to show that governments need to accept responsibility and they need to take action. From domestically, what we have done is, like I said, we've established this war room to coordinate government actions. And there are daily task force meetings, senior leadership pitch in twice a week, policies were established and they're reviewed on a regular basis. We did launch an international repatriation program to ensure the safe return of our citizens back home. We fulfilled 96% of that. His Majesty the King has ordered the free treatment of all COVID-related patients, be they citizens or expats and residents in Bahrain. And we've increased the laboratory testing capacity as well. And so what we're doing here is we're looking at the welfare of the people, and we're looking at how to move forward on the economy. Now, the IMF forecasts a rebound for the GCC economies next year, following a likely economic contraction due to COVID. And Bahrain is expected to record real GDP growth of 3% in 2021. Obviously, our neighboring countries as well, and therefore, I think that the whole region is going to be in a much better position next year. We have slashed government spending by 30% to weather the storm. We've developed a fiscal balance program that was launched by the Ministry of Finance and Economy that resulted in a total financial deficit decrease by 24% in 2019. And in the interim, the government will reschedule some construction and consulting projects to keep spending within the 2020 budget. We've also realized a very long time ago that we needed to diversify away from oil. And as a result, the financial corporation sector has grown to become the largest non-oil sector in Bahrain, contributing 16.7% to our GDP. It's followed by manufacturing and government services. But we also have been able to attract a lot of foreign direct investment, 942 million to be exact, which is well above the average global performance. And so the Economic Development Board succeeded in attracting 134 companies up until 2019. And we've seen a direct investment of $835 million as well. So all of these different procedures help position us in a better position going forward. But here is a game changer for Bahrain. It was in April of 2018 where what we call the Khalij al-Bahrain Basin was discovered. So oil was discovered in Bahrain in 1932. Up until then, we've moved away from oil. And now we see that there's an estimated quantity of 80 billion barrels of oil offshore in this offshore find, and quantities of gas that are estimated at 10 to 20 trillion cubic feet. And so the development today has achieved 42% completion. The production phase is due to begin within the next 5 years. But we do see that the basin is going to boost our economy, and it's going to be a game changer for Bahrain.
Yeah, I would agree with you, but I think the key really is looking forward even beyond 2021, as you had mentioned before, Ambassador, is this pivot to fintech, because that's something that's not going away. I mean, we can always debate oil and gas and alternative forms of energy, but fintech, I really believe is the way forward. And it appears that's what Bahrain is focusing on, and certainly will make it more attractive for further investment as you look to diversify.
Well, fintech is a logical industry for Bahrain to invest in, given the evolution of financial services ecosystem and the history that we have with this particular industry. And so with that came the establishment of Bahrain Fintech Bay, where facilities including dedicated co-working, innovation labs, advisory services, and collaboration platforms were provided. The central bank has been quick to embrace open banking, providing fintech companies of all sizes with a sound regulatory framework to evolve to meet the growing demand for digital payment services in the region. Three things to note. First, the forward-thinkingness of the government itself. With the transformation of Bahrain's fintech ecosystem, it has been driven by unmatched regulatory reform. So we have crowdfunding that was included, robo-advice, crypto asset platforms that were introduced. The second is a regulatory sandbox that was introduced in 2016, which allowed fintech firms to test new products and services in Bahrain. And since its inception, this sandbox has nurtured many different innovative businesses, including the Middle East's first licensed cryptocurrency exchange. And last, when we look at Bahrain being a test market, that's what we're trying to get across, is that you can come to Bahrain, you can set up in Bahrain, and you can not only access Bahrain, but also the region as well. Fintech is definitely the way forward, and it is an industry that we've been looking very closely to.
Ambassador, thanks so much for joining us on Trade Talks. It was a pleasure having you with us.
Thank you, Jill.
And thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.